So, as a brand new day starts, we find ourselves back in Kawagoe's office, where we recount some of the information that we experienced in the previous chapter. But it's really at this point, I kind of mentioned it in the previous chapter, but it comes out at this point that Kawagoe is definitely our replacement for Oyama in this game, in a number of ways, one of which is the fact that he is very eccentric, I think is probably the best word for it. Crazy would probably be a better word for it, but we're going to be nice to him, as he is going to be our mentor for most of the game. But the good news is that we're not just left with Kawagoe. Rin is also here in his office with us, and thankfully she does lend some voice of reason amongst all the supernatural things going on. Kawagoe, getting back to him though, is very ecstatic, I think would be the word for our little accident that we suffered with our left eye. He feels that it is some physical manifestation supporting his theories that we'll go into in just a little bit. But Rin is a little bit skeptical, which is understandable. She thinks that perhaps we were under some hypnosis, or possibly getting some subliminal messages from the TS, I guess? Maybe there was a gas leak in Odaka's apartment. Either way, she is rightfully skeptical about the things that we were seeing. She thinks maybe we were even concussed, and that's what's causing the changes in our perception. Maybe we scraped our cornea. Kawagoe, on the other hand, initially agrees, but kind of goes in a different direction. He thinks that, yes, there is definitely something wrong with our eye, but it's not so much an injury as, let's say, that it is a newfound ability. He likens it almost to a snake developing infrared vision. But as to what we are seeing with our left eye is a little bit unclear. The good news is that Kawagoe has a few ideas as to what might be happening with Davy's left eye. He thinks that in some way the hardware that allows the TS to show these ghostly happenings is somehow being written into Davy's eye. That somehow or another, maybe via supernatural nanomachines, Davy is slowly developing into a partial ghost sensor, I guess. I mean, we've definitely gotten the impression, at least from the previous game, that the TS is not only a means to communicate and interact with ghosts, but is also in some way a ghost detector itself. Now, granted, we didn't have much use for that in the previous game, but now that we have a pretty much constant periphery, i.e. our left eye, to indicate a presence of a ghost, hopefully we'll probably get some more use out of that. Still, the good news is that ghosts are not everywhere in this world. They do leave behind something of a residual energy, but it's usually connected in some way to places that they died or places that they had a strong connection with. It's pretty much quote-unquote common ghost knowledge, but it's very much a common theme in Japanese horror movies, such as in Ju-on. So more than likely, we are only really going to be seeing these spiritual energies around cursed areas, or possibly just manifesting from the cursed game itself. Kawagoe here, though, has some very interesting ideas regarding this curse. Not so much in its formation, because He seems to think that curses have existed since time immemorial, which is a bit outlandish. I don't really think that cavemen were dying in horrible ways and leaving behind caveman ghosts, but he really states more than anything that we need to figure out the cause of what is causing this curse on this game. And that is a very important question. Because we as the player, or we as someone who's played the previous game, we know that Asahi, who was causing the curse in the first game, was not only a little girl, but if we go along with the good ending, was exorcised from the game and should no longer be haunting it. So, the woman in white that we saw, that ripped open Davy's eye, more than likely could not be Asahi. She was much too old, and she should just no longer exist if we keep in the idea that we freed her soul. We don't know that for sure as of right now, but as far as I know, ghosts really do not grow up. Also of interest, much like Odaka's body from the first game, Yuto's body has also seemingly disappeared from the morgue. That, as we can probably assume, is bad news, but there are more important things to be getting at right now, which is hopefully gaining some information in regards to the game, the cursed game. And really, we don't have many options, at least none that me, Ren, or Kawagoe knows of at this point. All that we know is that there's a cursed game, we need to beat it, otherwise we die in 7 days, much like Yuto did. The good news is that both Kawagoe and Ren, since they probably are in the, we know they're in the same university, but they're probably in the same department as Oyama was, they both seem to have previous knowledge of Oyama's existence, even though, he very much went into another dimension. But for most people, they just know that he went missing. More importantly, we find out that Kawagoe is getting a lot of the information he knows about in regards to the cursed game and Odaka from his interactings with Oyama in the past. So he suggests to us that maybe we should go to Oyama's house, and there might be some more information waiting there for us. He also states that Oyama had something of an obsession in regards to the cursed game. At this point, I kind of worry that Kawagoe might run into a similar situation. So, it looks like we're heading to Oyama's house, but that seems a little bit flaky to Ren, and she thinks that there might be other possibilities for us to look into. And the good news is that Kawagoe does have another idea. Though calling it more concrete might be stretching that definition, but he seems to recall that up to a year ago, Oyama might have left a note at the subway. And it's at this point that we get an interesting change in that we can pick our destination. For right now, I'm going to go with Oyama's house, but we will be seeing the subway station in the following video. So after that incredibly long talk, it's nice to just have a pleasant little stroll in this dusk time. And we do get an email pretty much immediately This one being from Kawagoe. Just decides to fill us in on where Oyama's apartments are. They apparently are pretty close by. Though he does give us a bit of an odd warning in the fact that twilight is, as he puts it, a time of disaster. Which kind of makes me wish that he had been a little bit more condensed with his talking, because we probably could have left a little bit earlier. Still, something's going on with the left eye. And say hello to another returning feature for the game, a regret. Now, regrets have not really changed from the previous game. They are still very slow-moving, they are still very much one-hit kills, and as of right now, we can't get past that one to get to the Yamato apartment, so we're going to have to look for some other way around. Good news is, as you can see by the left-hand screen, the further we get away, the less distortion we get over there, so we do have a pretty clear means to tell when one is nearby, which is a pleasant change. Still, before we continue on, there is the matter of that cursed game. So, without much of an introduction, it seems that we are on a pathway leading to a brand new area. But before we can get there, we're going to have to follow a little bit of a maze of sorts. Not really that difficult. It's kind of like the subway pathway in the previous game. We just have to follow the path set via the marked flowers. But the marked flowers aren't only important for marking our path. They also provide a means to scare away these horrible ghosts that apparently we're going to be running into as we make our way around. We can only hope that perhaps that old man was nice enough to lay some out for us, but we'll be getting back to the game soon enough. Right now we're going to have to find our way to Oyama's. So, much like in the game, we are going to be using the flowers as a means to mark our path, and hopefully as a means to deter these regrets from following us. Especially given these very, very narrow alleyways behind all these houses. We don't really have too much of an area to dodge around regrets if we had to. That is very strange. So, this is another use that we can have with Davy's left eye. Occasionally, there will be things that can only be seen with the left eye. In this case, it's a drawing on the wall here. And we'll get a clearer view of what that drawing is in just a second, but for right now, we want to go ahead and touch it. Because anytime we touch those, we do get a game update. And if we talk to this figure, they don't have too much to say, but they do have a very important purpose. That's right, they lay down some flowers to mark our path, but more importantly, they'll drive away the regret that would normally be blocking our path. And as you can tell, the game will mirror the real world, or the real world will mirror the game, allowing us an easy access to getting by. So I'm not overly familiar with the Hamacho area, but there are some pretty large changes the further and further that we head into these alleyways. So, another blocking regret, and another set of flowers to lay down. So it's at this point that it might become a little bit more evident that the way that these alleyways are set up is synonymous with the way they are set up in the game. Now, we saw that there was a little branching path off to the right, but in much the same way that in the game that path just dead-ended, it would be the same way in this 3D section. Find that a pretty interesting game feature all around, and I think it's implemented a little bit better than it was in the first game. So we have another branching path, but quite clearly we just want to continue following the flowers. Overall, though, I find this a pretty nice callback to the second chapter of the first game, in regards to using the flowers as a means to find our way around. Also, it's a nice little show of just all the different environments, all the different possibilities that we could be getting. And there are plenty of jump scares, but they're a nice little change of pace here and there. I don't think they're overused. Also, the paintings are getting a little bit harder to find, and it can be a little bit disconcerting, a little bit difficult initially to not only find the paintings themselves, but also to position the stylus and the screen in such a way that you can interact with them. But the good news is, for right now, at least at this early point in the game, the regret that we're having to deal with is pretty docile. It's not actively trying to attack us or anything, but we really shouldn't get too used to that sense of safety. just have to set down one more little patch of flowers. And we'll be getting one more step closer and closer to our goal. Because I don't know about you, but I'm getting a little bit claustrophobic with all these enclosed spaces. But good news is that it seems that we've headed back into civilization proper. Now we find another painting, but this one looks noticeably different. And it doesn't give us any type of game update. Instead, it seems like somebody has been actively trying to get rid of it. Which is odd, considering that the only way to see it would be to, I assume, have this spectral vision. Or possibly to be dead yourself. Overall, though, this exterior setting is something we didn't see too much in the first game. We didn't really see any exterior settings until almost the final chapter, so yet again, it is pleasant that they decided to go with a slightly different environment, but things still seem very off. So we don't see any flowers around, and it doesn't look immediately like there's any paintings, but yeah, this one just takes a little bit more looking around to find. And the good news is that this will be the last flower setup that we're going to have to deal with. I will say that for however much the game does right, it does sometimes overuse some gameplay mechanics, and I'd say this was one of them. Maybe if there was a little bit more to it, but it does kind of overstay its welcome. But we are all past that. I get a feeling we are definitely very close to the Yamada apartments. Just have to suffer through one more very, very narrow corridor. Say that overall, this is at least it's a very calm corridor. Or at least it would be, were it not for the reappearance of our friend Yuto. Yeah, in much the same way that Odaka decided to haunt us over and over again in the first game, Yuto is going to make a few reappearances, though well, as we see for right now, he is not that especially fast. But he does have a few additional tricks to deal with. Now, I get a good feeling that if we manage to get to Yamada's apartments, that we can probably get away from Yuta. I don't see him following us there, and it's... Well, it's... Did we pass by this before? Yeah, if it's starting to look familiar, it's because we've been running in a little bit of a loop. Then we need to figure out some way to get out of the loop. To do that, we are going to have to use Davy's left eye one more time. Because hidden along one of these walls is another painting, but this one very noticeably different. And that's because the game it gives us is a completely new game. That's right, it's a 2D platformer with a little bit of a difficulty curve. But we managed to get through that unscathed. And our reward for doing that is an escape from Yuto. More importantly, though, it also means that we have escaped the loop. And quickly enough, we finally find ourselves at a crossroads. And it's a crossroads leading to the Yamada apartments. There's one problem, though. The Yamada apartment seems to be gone. Wiped from the face of the earth. Does that mean we're not going to be able to find the clue that we came looking here for? Well, no. Fate is shining its big pearly whites down upon us, and if you need any help finding it, there are little bits of clues laying around, but that's right, what we've been looking for are these notes here from Mr. Oyama. Namely, this is going to be leading us to one of our next destinations.